apologies for starting a few minutes late. We are going to convene the meeting. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Town of Brentwood just went live on YouTube if anyone's interested.
Good. All right. We will start today, as usual, by reviewing and signing payroll and accounts payable. For the period ending 12/7/24, we have payroll in the amount of $65,919.18. We have accounts payable in the amount of $30,671.04. We have no school or New Hampshire retirement payments. Okay, we good? Next, I will take a motion to review and approve the consent agenda with the caveat that we do not have a treasurer's report. Ambrose is still working on figuring out how he's going to be presenting those to us. So just with that deletion, I will take a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda?
I just added, there's just a formatting issue, there's a comma missing in the police budget. I added it with that.
In a way that made it confusing?
A little bit.
Okay,
Yeah, it was missing the
Comma.
first comma, so it looked
gotcha,
like,
A run over.
gotcha. Okay, so do you see that correction in there, Letty?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that correction, any other amendments or corrections? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table for the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I'm an aye, so we will pass that. I'm not going to open public comment because we have no one in the audience tonight.
Shouldn't we still open it so we can close it?
I will, fine, I open public comment at 6:11, I close public comment
I
at
don't want
6:11.
people to say we didn't give them a chance.
Well, they weren't here. For discussion action items tonight, we have a couple of budgets to be discussed tonight. These were challenging budgets for us to do, and Letty and I did our absolute best to try to get them on here. And then Andy, we appreciate your help on the trash and recycling budget. We will start tonight.
Not my fault.
He says it's not his fault. We'll get to that one. We'll do that one. We'll do that one last. So we will start, why don't we start with the general insurance budget, which is the one that starts at the 01419611520 line. This is the budget that includes property and liability, workers' comp, unemployment, and insurance deductible. These numbers that you see here reflect changes made by our town administrator before she went out on leave, and so are worth us discussing if we are comfortable with those. Letty, I don't know if while we're talking, if you want to pop into her email and see if we can find the Primex quote, because there was a note in the budget planning that Primex usually quotes us our liability rates in October. And I don't know if we've seen, Jillian, do you recall seeing that document? No, not yet. It's probably in the email. So we'll see if we can find that, because there may be an increase in that first line. The changes that I see here as made by RTA was to add money to the unemployment compensation line, which historically we had funded at $1,000, and to add money to the insurance deductible line. But this is a little bit of a guess what I'm thinking endeavor here. Did you find anything?
It's searching.
Okay.
Primex renewal packets are now available online.
Okay.
Let me see if I have a Primex. The unemployment line is interesting because I would have expected this year actual to have not zero.
I think when we've had anybody on unemployment, we've applied that to a salary line, correct?
Yeah, it's currently being,
Right.
yeah.
Then why do we?
So maybe the intentionality was to move that to this line so as not to overspend a salary line? Like I said, this is a guess what.
I mean, I would
Guess
bring
what
it
I'm
back down to
thinking.
$1,000, honestly. I don't think,
Does anyone on
I
the
don't want
board
to have
feel
a
the reason to?
placeholder for unemployment like that, with that amount of money in it. That's me.
I agree. I'm not really sure why we would need to bump that line that much. Do you have any thoughts on that, Andy, in terms of, I don't think we've ever really funded that line significantly?
No, I have no thoughts, other than to return it to $1,000.
Yeah, I think in general, for example, we have had an employee that's received some unemployment and it's just gone into the salary line and.
But it shouldn't, should it?
No, because technically, if that
Should go-
position's staffed, it would overspend
Right.
the line.
Right, I think that's presumably, and guess what I'm thinking is presumably why this line was fleshed out, to move that to this line.
But I'm not sure this is a year to flush out that line.
Yeah.
Plus
Given,
it seems like 25,000.
yeah, I do think that's a lot.
Yeah.
That would be, what, two employees receiving maximal unemployment benefits for the year, right? Because the maximal unemployment's around 12,000 or so.
But
I
it's,
know we've figured that before.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much, but
It's around 11,000 something when you max out at 27 weeks or whatever it is. So I'm hearing general consensus maybe to drop this number down. Do we want to drop it all the way back down to the 1,000
Yep.
placeholder?
That's what I would do.
Any other thoughts?
I agree.
I mean, sometimes when you're paying somebody unemployment, you also have an open position for a while that offsets some of that. So we potentially have the
it's
ability to absorb a little
Cleaner
here.
accounting wise to put it in here so that we know when we're looking at the budget next year, oh, we didn't actually overspend that line. We were,
That, I'm assuming that was the intentionality here, yeah.
but I'm not gonna budget for it because hopefully we don't have anyone on unemployment.
Any reason we wouldn't just drop it to $1? I mean,
We could.
you- We're not
We,
gonna use it.
we're self-insured, right? So any unemployment does come directly out of our budget. So I guess leaving it at 1,000 gives you a small buffer if someone's on unemployment for a short period of time. I would feel comfortable leaving it at the 1,000. Andy, do you feel strongly about that? You're in favor of that?
I'll make a motion to change it to 1,000.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
Second,
So we have a motion and a second to change the 528 line from 25,000 back down to 1,000. In terms of the 570 line, the insurance deductible, Letty and I are not sure why
I'm gonna leave it.
that
because
would
I-
go from 1,000.
Historically, have we ever spent anything out of that
I
line?
have no idea.
Let me look at,
$5,000
I can look at 2023.
I can tell you, $5,000 deductible on Primex liability.
That's probably why then.
So maybe for any pending or pending litigation that might be resolving in 2025.
That
I
could
don't-
be what it is. Yeah, let me just look under 2023.
Oh,
That would make sense that that would be our deductible.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That actually makes a lot more sense.
okay.
So.
Can I move?
It was budgeted $1,000 in 2023 and was not spent. And in fact, that doesn't make sense.
We're not gonna rethink things that
Let's-
happened in the past. So I would like to move this budget for 163,615, which is last year's budget plus $4,000.
Are you suggesting dropping the 570 line back down to 1,000 as well?
No.
No?
That's why I'm adding
Leaving that?
$4,000.
Should we see if we can pull up the Primex quote? Do we think it's going to be significantly different? You know what, I can look and see how it changed from the year prior.
I'm not sure that I have access. to
It
that
did
portion.
change significantly from year prior. Went from 69,000 to 81. So we may want to,
Can we skip that?
try to
and
have
come
that
back to
number.
this one in a minute?
yeah, we may want to come back to this one.
Computer?
because that could be a significant
We
change.
can come back to it still.
Workman's comp could be a significant change too, depending on what our claims are at.
It looks like, yeah, it was 67,000 year prior and up to 75,000, so that could be a bump there as well. We have had multiple claims this year. Okay, so let's hold on that until we see if we can pull up the Primex information. The next budget is the health insurance budget. Letty, do you want to go over this one?
Sure.
Letty's been doing the very, very difficult, hard lifting on this budget. This is one of the toughest budgets.
So we had open enrollment. It went well. I didn't have to chase anyone, which was lovely. So I modeled out what current employees are taking, and then I added in an extra 3 family plans because we're having at least 3 new people maybe coming into town who could take the highest possible plan. And so that added about $56,000 to that first line. In lieu of insurance is just the people that elect to get a $25 a week payout instead of taking insurance from the town. Dental insurance went down based on current selections. Short-term disability went up for additional staff. Life insurance went down, and we're not sure why there's a FICA line. So we left it.
Do you have any thought why there would be a FICA line under our insurance budget? No? Yeah, that's either.
Probably to the benefit of in lieu of insurance is taxed.
Oh, that could be.
So
That makes a lot of sense. Yep, okay. That's a taxable benefit from the town. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Which is perfect because that line stayed the same, which means the FICA and Medicare can stay the same.
Perfect.
Let's say I did that on purpose.
Okay, that makes sense. So when you see the 10% increase in that top line, that is the fact that our plans went up like 8, was it 8? Exactly 8?
It
Eight-ish,
averaged out to 8, yeah.
8%, and then that extra 2.5% is that buffer for us hiring new employees. So this budget goes up significantly less than last year, where we saw a very significant increase in this budget. It was in the, 25% range. But this is still a pretty big impact on our budget with going up about 56,000 total.
I'm also gonna mention, just because it is not entirely clear, the way that historically this has been calculated, the dental insurance amount and the health insurance amount are not calculated the same way. So it's possible we may have to reopen this one at some point after you talk to.
Sure. We did just follow what the town has done the past couple of years, but we scratched our head a little bit over it. So the total budget you see in front of you is $624,859, which is an increase of almost 10%, or just over $56,000 for insurance. Other questions, comments about this budget?
My only comment would be that maybe this is a task for the new town administrator when they get their feet wet to look at the insurance. To me, it's a big nut.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see if there's any way to adjust that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we talked about changing some plans to maybe have a little bit of cost savings, but the board voted against that because it would have cost the employees more, which we didn't, again, that was during the time of record inflation during COVID, and we didn't want to do that. But that certainly could be on the
Time
table.
to revisit that is all.
Could be on the table for future discussion. Yep.
Given the situation, I think it is what it is. So.
Sure.
I mean, we did just sign those health trust rates, so I think we're locked in for the next year anyway.
Yeah, but then, this time next year, we'll be discussing it again.
Sure.
I'll move the $56,210.
Oh, that'd be great, except that's the increase.
Yeah,
Cut it from bottom to first.
that's all you're getting.
One person
It's
can
been
have insurance.
sliced.
Not even
I'll move 624, 859
Thank you.
with a comma.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we'll pass that budget. Letty, I don't know if you want to take a second to work on, you working on the Primex thing? Okay, Letty will work on that while we discuss the trash. And Andy, I'm going to give you the pleasure of presenting this budget. And you don't even have to be wearing a helmet because there's nobody in the crowd. So
I bet
You'll be
people are
safe.
watching online.
they can throw stuff at their TV screen when they hear about how expensive recycling and waste is for towns. It's traditionally considered to be one of the single highest taxable items in most towns in New Hampshire is waste and recycling. And I would say that is correct. In fact, it is even higher than our health insurance.
All right, so as Jen just talked about, in the last couple of years, we went through remarkable inflation, and our Casella contract was locked in, so they had no way of increasing our costs to make up for them having to pay more in drivers, more in trucks, more in everything. So we took a significant increase in both collection and recycle. They broke it out nice and easy for us so that they gave us two rates. First, the manual collection for all year would be $379,000. And automated collection for the whole year would be $346,875. And that's just for waste. That doesn't include recycle. So when this budget was done, Letty and Jen calculated half a year manual, half a year automated to give us time to switch over. So the number you see here, the 381,888, is a combination, is 6 months manual, 6 months automated. And then recycle was $157.50 for manual and $135,350 for, excuse me, curb automated. So that budget was calculated the same way of 6 months and 6 months.
Letty, I'm actually looking at that, and I think that rubbish collection number is actually wrong,
Great.
right? Because if it was
I don't know anymore.
we just did it quickly right before we came in here. So if it was 379 for half of the year, that would be 189. And then if it was 346, so the number should come out between those two, not above those two. So I think the math just went screwy.
What number should it be?
Do you have the exact dollars?
It,
379 is even.
yeah,
I think
379 is even.
So that divided by 2 would be 189,500.
That's an annual.
The other
Yeah.
one was
346,875.
346,875 divided by 2 is 173,438. So if we add those together, 189,500 plus 173,438, we get 362,938 for that line.
So they
Just a
bill us
math error.
monthly, Paul. So it was easy to, swap in and out because you just take the rate divided by 12 and that's what you pay for that month.
Do you want to check recycling too then, Jen?
Yeah, because we did the same math for recycling, right?
Yep, 157.50,
And what was the other one?
135,350.
135,350. Okay, I'll do that while you're talking.
That was the only other talking I had.
Okay,
It is what it is.
it's
The
not,
contract expires in
yeah, and this is fixed for
20
5 years, right?
1 days. No. So there's an
This is a-
escalator in here.
There's an escalator, okay. Oh, that's right, we
Or-
did have an
or
escalator in our old contract.
Yep.
Yep.
I think you mentioned this in this presentation, that they were going up that. I mean, that's like a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
So I guess that was some of the conversation that was supposed to be had with the former town administrator prior to
Your number's
the
right.
summer, to give us a heads up that we were getting a
Significant increase.
significant increase due to inflation and costs. And that conversation never happened.
Recycling, this is 100% increase, that's not
It
inflation.
is, yeah.
That's just gouging. Again, I don't know what we can do about it.
The
Well, I think
only
there was-
thing we could do about it is not do recycling in the town of Brentwood, which I do not think this board is going to make that decision.
Not
Here
right
tonight.
now.
You just go to garbage instead of recycling.
Yeah, but then your
I don't,
costs go up on that side.
right, exactly. I don't think the public would be in favor of that. And to John's point, it just means you start throwing away everything that you used to recycle.
I mean,
So
we
the
could,
cost just
we could
moves to
do
the other line.
a advisory warrant article to see what people want to do.
Yeah, if there's people in the public who don't want to have recycling in Brentwood anymore, they certainly can bring that forward as a warrant, but
I just don't know if the costs are one-to-one in terms of moving
I
over.
don't know. Yeah,
Having said that, I mean, I think we need, recycling is a good thing.
yeah, I think so too. But yeah, that is a significant increase.
He did mention that they just opened their brand new recycling facility. And that
Maybe
historically-
reflects the cost.
That wouldn't surprise me. Historically, the way that recycling works has been pretty inefficient and full of problems in terms of like the mixed recycling.
Mm-hmm,
And that's what he was talking about the other day.
mm-hmm.
I know we were in a sort of a last minute bind, but is it worth, moving forward, seeing if there are other,
We can't, I mean, our contract expires in 2 weeks. We can't.
no, I know not now, but I mean, the future. It's a 5-year.
Had we known in June, we would have been able to bid it and see what the comparison is.
I think that was their
Let's not focus
original.
on what has happened in the past, please.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it now.
We can't,
We have to,
Is it?
we have to
does it be a
provide
5-year?
trash services for our
well,
public.
it doesn't have to be a 5-year, but I don't know what the prices will be.
Yeah, the prices usually go up if it's a shorter contract.
Yeah, I guess it,
They're not gonna start an automation program with us, so we would probably extend the first contract with the full manual recycling, which would be more than this price.
Right.
I understand.
So you would pay the full year of manual recycling manual trash would be $379 and manual recycling of $157.50.
Right, which goes up even more
Right.
in this budget.
I mean, it sucks. There's nothing
Yeah.
that we're gonna do about this.
Nope, it's just painful. I think we're all just feeling the pain
Yeah.
of this. So with the corrected number in that rubbish collection line, it's an increase of 38.9%. And then Lydia, your recycling number is correct, the 143,050, which is an increase of 104%. Which certainly does give one sticker shock. The other line that's on here is the landfill line. So that's the 396 line. And that is the line that refers to what I talked about last week with our regional landfill agreement. And so what I did for this line is I bumped the budget by about 5%. The contract is for 4.5%, but there's some up and down with the tonnage that we use. And so without having any like accurate predictions of what our tonnage might be, I just gave that a small buffer and bumped that line up 5% to reflect the 4.5% contract that regional association is going to enter into with the dump. So that line that goes up 5%.
You ready for motion?
I am if you are, although let me just correct
Oh, right.
the numbers here. 1,430,50 plus 362,938. 161,280 plus 4,890. I'm getting 672,158.
Same, I got the
Great.
same.
Perfect.
Move 672,158.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right. Letty, have you had a chance, or do you want me to?
Yep, so I see where they, sent out an email in October to the town administrator. The account that I have on Primex does not allow me to log in, like, doesn't show
Mhm.
me that part. So I'm gonna see if I can. I think I have to contact them, because I don't think the other account exists anymore.
Okay. Do you want to table this?
No.
What would you like?
I
What
would
would you
rather approve it
suggest?
and reopen it if we need to, because then at least there is something on the books.
The only issue is BudCom is next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we could, because we know this is not an accurate budget, we could make an estimated,
Sure, I mean, if we
Increase.
want to just make up number.
or we could just table it and have a brief 5-minute meeting. Or, I mean, we have one more week next week. We just could tell BudCom that it's tabled and they'll have to take it up
Is it,
after the fact.
can BudCom approve a budget before we do?
Yes.
They can, they did on a couple of the ones that had like little math corrections.
So,
We could do it that way,
I mean, I'm,
get the accurate numbers by then.
I can almost assure, I mean,
That's
a
true.
week.
We could bring it to BudCom. We may just have to call Primex. Bring it to BudCom. I can bring it to them Monday, then I can bring it here Tuesday, and we could do it just a flip.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because it's not a number we're really gonna change at the select board. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's a contractual number. Okay,
Which is the number, the property and liability?
and the workers' comp, those first two lines probably have year-to-year increases. And honestly, we're spending so much time on the health insurance budget that we did not even think to track down this contract before tonight. And didn't realize we didn't already have those updated numbers. Okay, so this will be tabled. I'll take a motion to table this.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
On that note, should we talk about the TA budget, the town administration budget now, or wait?
I think that's up to us. We potentially may want to talk about that in non-public under hiring.
Okay.
Or we can talk about it in public. I think
I know that
we
Bud-
had previously passed it,
Yep.
and BudCom had tabled it on the assumption that Select Board may want to change that, given our hiring situation. I don't know if this board, meaning like if we had to adjust the salary or compensation line as we were doing a search. I think when we first discussed it as a board, we didn't feel the need to do that, but then BudCom wanted to potentially pause it and if we wanted to make changes to that budget. So I don't know if anybody wants to reopen that budget and change it, or just
I would
wants to go
rather
back to
just
BudCom and
leave
tell them
it
we're comfortable leaving it.
as a placeholder and say, this is what you're
What
doing.
was it?
It had the standard budget numbers in it for our prior town administrator's salary. So it had her normal COLA adjustment. I think it was from like 105,000 to 111,000 or something like that. So I think the BudCom's thought is did we need to adjust that factor for marketability and hiring at all?
Leave it.
Yeah, I think we felt pretty comfortable leaving it.
Yeah.
So I can bring that back to BudCom that we just prefer to not reopen that budget at this time. Okay, I can certainly do that. One other thing from BudCom perspective is the government buildings budget is one that they did amend at BudCom. All the others passed as approved by us. So police, animal control, library, health officer, general government, mosquito control, all passed. But the general government, they did suggest an amendment. And the amendment for that budget, so if we will need to reopen that if we want to get in agreement with BudCom. Let me just find it in my packet. There were some other proposed amendments that did not get seconded or approved at that budget committee hearing. The change that they made is there is a line in the government buildings budget called land maintenance. It was budgeted at $1,000 last year and then was budgeted at $2,500 for this year. We spent $0 in that line. I was not able to answer questions as to what that line pertains to particularly because I do not know.
Is that for like trails maintenance, maybe?
I honestly
Town-owned
don't
land?
know.
Okay.
I
Potentially.
wonder if that got bumped up as a result of conversation between Karen and Andy on rec drainage.
I don't know because rec already has a $7,500 line item in that budget for rec center repairs,
Rec
maintenance.
center,
Yeah,
but that's-
but it also wouldn't be enough to really support some of the land maintenance needed at rec. So I don't know why that was bumped. BudCom, because I couldn't answer that for BudCom, they recommended dropping that down to the prior year of 1,000. So their final budget that was approved had a decrease of 1,500 in that line back down to where it had been a year prior.
I have a meeting with Andy tomorrow. Is it acceptable to ask him?
Yes, because BudCom has already approved this, so it's just up to us to reopen it, and we could do that next week. If it's okay with the board, it's okay with me. I'm just gonna look and see if what that was like before general government. So, oh no, government buildings. Government buildings. So, year prior, that had been budgeted at $994, not sure why. And $660 was spent out of that line. So we could potentially look up those invoices and see what that was. I just didn't have that information for BudCom that night. And so it sounds like maybe we just need to research that a little bit and see what was being applied to that line and whether increasing it to 2,500 was required or not. So for 2023, we had $660 that was applied to that, the 01419416700 line. Maybe we can just pull that and see what that was. You may be right that it may
How
be
many
trails
dollars is the
maintenance.
difference? We're talking about $1,500?
1,500. Yeah, it's not a big difference. It's just that ideally we'd like to match BudCom when we can.
Yeah, I just don't want to take away money if that was something that was.
Okay, so why don't we table that until next week and decide if we want to reopen it then with slightly more information. That should be a relatively quick thing to do.
So is that all of our, do we do all budgets now? Are we done?
The only one that when you and I were just going through
Oh,
budgets
sorry.
really quickly that I didn't see anywhere on any of our schedule was street lighting.
I would like to open the
got-
discussion on streetlights for
Yes.
$1.
Seems like it just didn't make it on the list, and I don't know. Andy, historically, we've always had it in there for $1. Is there a statutory or any other reason why we've held on to
I
that all
am
these
sure
years?
there's a reason.
So
And or a reason
This-
it would have been left off this year? Or was that maybe just an accident?
I don't know why it was, historically, the state stopped paying for streetlights. The
Right.
Board of Selectmen back in, long time ago, voted to keep the street light lit at the end of South Road at 107, because that's where the Steve Raquel Memorial was. So it
Mm-hmm,
kept the memorial illuminated,
right.
but the state never charged us for the light, so
So do we?
it's still on and we're not paying the bill.
But that was the intentionality of leaving that in there. Does anyone?
Because it was funded at one point.
Yep. But hasn't been
Because the
in many
state
years.
said at some point they were gonna pass on the intersection lighting cost to us, and,
That never occurred.
correct.
So I'd like to move that budget for $1.
Sure.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll put street lighting for $1 just in case. And then I'm just looking through, I think that should be all of our budgets that have been done. So the only ones that are still floating out there is just the government buildings misalignment between the two boards and the town administrator that has been tabled by them, but not us. And then the only other budget that will come before BudCom is the Swayze budget. That's in addition to these budgets that we've discussed. Hopefully, we didn't miss any other budgets. I don't think we did. All right, any other budgetary discussions for tonight?
Probably not for tonight, but for next time, we should update all of them in the system and see where we're at percentage-wise.
Yes, agreed, agreed. For regular business, we will move on. We had, I believe, an intent to cut. So we have an intent to cut for tax map 201 lot 15 off of Route 125. Looks like it's 146 Route 125,
No, that's
or is that just the,
their mailing address. It's actually the lot right next to Tractor Supply.
oh, okay. That's this, that's that lot,
Mhm.
15?
Yep.
Okay. So we have an intent to cut. I'll take a motion for this.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Date is the 10th. Did you have anything else for us, Jillian? In other regular business, as that's getting signed, the board received an email from our building inspector, Kip Kaiser, that he is feeling ready to cut back on his hours and retire from Brentwood. So he has signaled that he's willing to stay on in a limited capacity into January to help us onboard a replacement. I think we'll just need to have a discussion with him about exactly what that looks like and what that means. But it does mean that we are going to be in the market for a building inspector. And I know, Letty, you had had some thoughts about maybe needing to adjust that position a little bit as we look to hire someone
Yeah,
new.
I think, because right now it's just part-time. And from my discussions with Kip, I think you've had similar discussions. He ends up doing a lot of other things. To the point where I think we could probably have a full-time person that is responsible for the building inspection, code enforcement, and general, not building maintenance, but just like keeping awareness of the buildings, kind of where they are, what they need, kind of the project manager stuff that Kip has been doing more officially.
Are you thinking, so given the time of the year, are you thinking of potentially reopening that budget next week and adjusting it before we go
What is that?
to finalize our budget?
What is?
He has his own code enforcement budget that we approved several weeks back.
Possibly.
So we need to think about that and maybe talk with him about what his thoughts are about that position.
We need to hire somebody for that pretty directly, so we don't have to reopen it. We just have to make sure that we know what we're doing by February.
Well, if we're gonna turn a part-time position into a full-time position with an increased salary, then we probably would need to open that budget and modify the.
Oh, absolutely, but we
salary
don't
range.
need to do that until February. Like, we have until the beginning of February to do that when the
Sure.
budget hearing is, so.
Sure.
I think we should decide what we want that position to look like and post it ASAP.
Okay. Okay, we can have those discussions with him about how to best optimize that position. Any other general business that you have? Nothing? Nothing? Okay. We'll go to committee updates and other general board business, and we'll start with Andy.
I have no general committee updates. Library trustees meet tomorrow. I do have two things on my, the town administrator was responsible for snow days.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked Daphne if she could step into that role, so that she can communicate with Wayne and then communicate with Jen about closing, delay opening of the town office building. Daphne said she had no problem stepping into that role for now.
Okay.
So I don't
Do we
know
have
if-
a weather phone tree or some employee notification system we've used for that in the past?
So basically it was between the town administrator and the road agent.
Yep.
Then to the chair, and then
Yep.
the town administrator took care of calling. Because it's just people up here that
Right.
it's affected by,
Right.
so.
It's a pretty quick, those
Yeah.
people all know each other's phone numbers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say it's probably a group text, pretty quick and easy. Okay.
And then
perfect.
my second one is that we need to remind everybody to start doing their town report
Yep.
stuff and submitting it to us.
Yep. We were just discussing that today.
Yep.
Do we know the normal time frame for when we send that off to the printer?
Yes, I looked literally,
Yeah.
great minds. I was thinking that the due date, oh, that's the wrong calendar. The due date for that would be January 24th, which is the second to last Friday in January. We have to wait until after the public hearing to send it, but I would like to have everything else completely ready so that when we have the public hearing information, it can go off right away.
And the public hearing,
Is typically the day.
why do we have to
after,
wait till after that?
Because up until then, the budget can change.
That's true. And the warrants aren't even due until the 7th, I think, of February.
Right, so
the week-
usually
it's
whatever.
a few days prior, or the 4th, I want to say.
Yeah, so if the warrants are due on the 4th, then typically the budget hearing would be on the 5th, like the next day.
No, budget hearing's going to be on the 10th of February. Per Jack,
What day of the week is that?
Monday.
Oh, that's different.
It's usually on a Monday.
But either way,
Yep.
We can't do anything until that
Yep.
hearing is done. So my intent was to have everything ready to go, other than those things that were gonna be finalized at that meeting, and then be able to dump those in and send it off ASAP. I don't know, are we just using the same company that we've always used?
I would assume
Are
so.
we doing something different?
So I got the town transition to the company we have now
Mm-hmm.
from, that's what Sandown used, and it was a significant cost savings. So,
Okay.
Yeah. probably
So
should just
literally
stick
who we
with the
use,
same.
I'll just, I know exactly.
Yeah.
Print it out. then
so
we'll
this
just-
year I would definitely,
Okay.
Stick with the same company. So January 24th is a Friday, and then there would be about 2 weeks later till the budget hearing. So if we had to do any last minute, additions and changes, we could.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to push it out to the 31st, we can. I'm not interested in chasing anyone, so if they don't submit something, their page is blank.
Yeah, we can certainly put the 24th as sort of a goal date to get stuff in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I figure we can send that out now-ish, just to say, hey, this is coming, because I'm assuming a lot of that stuff they can start pulling together
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, the annual write-ups and reports and things like that.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that you had, Andy?
nope, I'm good.
John?
I submitted, or I sent in the RFP for the revaluation.
Nice.
That's been formatted. There was a tremendous amount of formatting, so probably good for someone else who hasn't stared at it for long, just to skim through it very quickly, make sure nothing looks super wonky. Then I'd like to get that out have a list, we have the appendix, we have the list of 7 companies to send this out to. And then Jim Misha gave us the RFP and the appendices.
Is it just a subset of those companies on the DRA list, or is it the entire list that we're sending it to?
I was gonna send it, I thought he said 7.
I think it was like 12 or 15. It was like a pretty long list, but I don't know if all of them use our software or not. But that's just the
That might
list.
be why
That's just the list he gave us.
7 is in my.
Okay.
But anyway, I was just gonna follow his recommendations
Okay.
and send it off.
Okay. Anything else?
Am I good to send that out to the companies for his guidance?
Yeah. Do you want somebody else to eyeball it, or do you feel confident about it?
I sent it to your address,
Okay.
and the town administrator address.
Okay.
So just, I don't care, just, like, I'm not talking read it, I'm just literally just, if anything jumps out.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other board business that you had? Okay, Paul?
Other than getting in lots of town administrator applications.
Yeah, we're up to 13 applications, I believe.
12 or
I
13.
think, yeah, I
losing
think,
count.
I think we're up to 13 applicants. And we've done 3 interviews
Yes.
so far. Yep.
Number more coming up this week.
Yep. Great. Okay. We had briefly discussed when we made the announcement about Chief Ventura resigning that we were going to leave the lieutenant as officer in charge. I think we may want to provide some clarity for the public about sort of the next steps for the chief. I think that all of us are feeling relatively confident that that department is in safe hands right now. And I think Letty and I had been talking a little bit that the town administrator search is our #1 top priority to get the town back on the right track. And so if this board was in favor, that it might be worth us just making a statement to the public that we are prioritizing that and will readdress the downstairs leadership issues maybe come January. I don't know if any board members feel strongly about that, but I feel that we may just want to be upfront with the public about when we are going to make some decisions about the next steps for downstairs. There's only so much bandwidth that we have to try to replace some really important people in this town. Does anyone have thoughts on the timing of us making decisions for that?
I think that was the point of increasing lieutenant's salary,
Yep.
because it was gonna be a long haul.
It was going to take some time.
Yeah, I don't know if we necessarily need to put a timeline on it, but just acknowledging that,
We're going
It's
to
not gonna
address
be at
that
the same
issue
time
next.
as, yes, it's not going to be at the same time as what we're doing now.
Okay, and we will let the public know when there's any further movement in that department. But for now, we feel the department is in good hands. Great, okay, perfect. Anything else, Paul? Letty?
Yes. I had a planning board meeting last week, and they started to review some new master plan chapters. They reviewed the housing, transportation, and vision chapters, kind of the first pass through. They're gonna make some edits and then hopefully adopt those at the next planning board meeting. I think that's it. Oh, I've had pretty good results or turnout, I guess, for that budget communication thing that
Mhm.
I talked about last week. I've had 5 or 6 people respond that they're interested in working with us. So I think that's gonna be good for the town and the board to produce something that people feel like is just straight information, no spin.
What are we calling that group? Sort of an ad hoc budget communication group?
communication,
Yeah,
I guess, because if anyone's interested in that, they can send me an email. That volunteer position is listed on the website. In addition, the deputy chief position is listed on the website as a current opening, and the 2 lieutenant positions over at fire are listed as anticipated after town meeting.
perfect.
I think that's it.
Okay, great. In terms of updates from me, I already gave the board some updates about BudCom, so we are in almost complete agreement with them with budgets, with the exceptions that we discussed earlier. We did get an update from Brian Duffy, who is on that department, that the solar installation is going on right now at the school, and about 80% of the panels are now up. We also got an update that the annual school budgetary meeting will be on March 3rd. So that will be when the school budget is voted on, March 3rd, 2025, about a week before town meeting and town election. So anybody in town is encouraged to go to that to weigh in on the school budget. And we also discussed at that meeting, Steph Lewinden's been helping to design a flyer to try to get more people interested in coming to the budget hearing in February. So that is being worked on. The Budget Committee continues to talk about how best to do an estimated tax impact or budget impact of the budget every year. So there's ongoing discussion about that. I have been pretty vocal at that group that given that we're in a reval year, I do feel that it needs to have a lot of caveats and asterisks if the Budget Committee does feel that they want to make any estimates for the public, that there are so many moving parts in a reval year that estimates are going to be very difficult for the public, and just to really make sure that we communicate that appropriately to the public. And so those conversations are ongoing at BudCom. There is going to be follow-up BudCom meetings, which I wrote down somewhere. We planned one in January and one in February for now, with the understanding that some of those could be modified, and that occasionally BudCom does have a meeting just before the public hearing. So as of right now, there will be the final official budgetary BudCom meeting next week on December 16th. There is a tentative meeting for January 27th, another for February 3rd, and then the hearing will likely be on February 10th, as I mentioned earlier, possibly with a short BudCom meeting at the beginning of that meeting if there's any last-minute warrants that BudCom needs to review before presenting to the public. So January 27th, February 3rd, February 10th are the newly scheduled BudCom meetings. And I think that is all I have from BudCom. Any other regular board business?
Do you want me to see if Casella is available to make a presentation at BudCom next week?
I don't know. What would be the intentionality of that? To describe the automation change, to describe why their rates are up significantly?
Probably describe why their rates are up and what has affected that cost driven.
Do you think that's
change.
really gonna change how that board makes that decision?
I don't know.
That's fair.
I mean, I don't think so. I think the BudCom understands that trash and recycling are important services that we provide to the town. I think maybe it would be helpful for the general public and this board to understand why those rates are up so much. So whether that's presented to the BudCom or presented to us or communicated in some way that the public could take part in, I think that might be a good idea. I mean, whenever you have a budget go up 100%, we probably need to be able to explain that to the public as transparently as possible. So maybe if they either want to come here, come to BudCom, I think all those are publicly viewable, so that would be fine with me. Might be helpful. The rest of the board think that might be helpful just for information purposes? Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
like to know.
Yeah, I would too, just to understand all the moving parts. I mean, we know we've had significant inflation. I think the inflation over the past 4 or 5 years has been like 20-25%, but not 100%. So there's, like, to your point, there's probably some other factors that factor in there that might be helpful for us to understand. Sure, I think that's a good idea.
So do you want it for,
What do you think is most appropriate for us next week, for BudCom? Or
I think if,
might kill two birds with one stone to be at BudCom?
yeah, if it's at BudCom, it would be next week. If it was with us, it probably wouldn't be till after the first of the year, because
We have one more regular meeting next week, and then the 2 holidays, Tuesdays. So it would have to either be next week or bumped.
Right.
Sorry, that reminded me that the dragway people stopped by earlier today. So they might want to get on the agenda for next week, just in terms of what.
With their new contract?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think is best for timing with Casella?
So if you think it would be helpful for the presentation next week, we can ask. If not, we can do a January meeting.
Either one's okay with me, maybe just see what their availability is.
You're the one that needs to sell this next week, so if you want
Yeah,
help,
I mean, it's pretty easy to sell. This is the contract, this is what we've got, we can sign it, or we don't have trash. So, you know, I don't
Right.
like the number, but the concept is pretty easy to sell. I think if they can come to BudCom, that would be great. But then Select Board may either want to watch that or come, or I can relay it just to make sure that everyone on this board really understands that information as well.
6,
So yeah, if they can come next week, great.
6,
6,
next week at 6.
yes,
On
6
Monday?
p.m., 6 p.m., correct, on the 16th. Okay, so we'll see what the timing of that will be. Any other regular board business? I would suggest that we need to go into non-public, probably for hiring and maybe for brief legal. Does anybody else have any other non-public topics?
I do not.
Anyone else?
I don't think so. That don't fall under those things.
No, okay. I'll take a motion to go into non-public at 7:05 for hiring and legal.
Moved.
Second.
Andy and Letty, we'll take a roll call vote. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul? Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So all in favor, and we will go out of public session.